everyone, I'm Jessica Stutzman and welcome back to the Millcreek Government Channel. Erie gets sports. Planning large sporting events can take a lot of effort, time, contacts, and organization to bring some of our town's favorite sporting events to the area. The Erie Sports Commission is committed to promoting the Erie region as a prime destination for both sports and recreational activities. From the Erie Sports Commission, we have the Executive Director, Mark Generette, on our show today to share with us their goals for continued growth into the future. Mark, thank you so much for being here today. It's been a little while since we've talked.
It has. Happy to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, and so just give us a brief overview of the Erie Sports Commission and your mission.
Well, we're a department of Visit Erie, which is the local Convention and Visitors Bureau. The Convention and Visitors Bureau focuses on regular tourism, organic tourism, where we're more laser focused, and we specifically focus on sporting events and competitions to drive more people into the community from out of town so they spend some more money and generate economic impact.
And yeah, and you just mentioned impact, but what is the impact of sports tourism nationally and statewide?
Well, it's interesting. You never think about taking your children or yourself, if you're a competitor, going off to an event and realizing the bigger picture, which is all those people coming to town to do those events. And nationally right now, it's about a $450 billion industry annually, which equals about $100 million in sports tourism spending per day if you average it out over the course of the year. So it is gigantic. We often thought it was a recession-proof industry. We learned a lot over the last couple of years with COVID coming through. But the fact is, sports tourism is driving the tourism and hospitality industry back to where it was before COVID. So it is an extremely important industry nationwide, and it's also an extremely important industry within our county of Erie.
Mm-hmm. And I think, again, we all had to take a step back when the pandemic hit, but I feel like sports and connecting to others and connecting to family, that's what people were most eager and excited to get back to. And I'm just thinking again, we were excited to get back to gymnastics, and that was one of the first things we did. But then after that, I'm just thinking about, like you said, the economic impact. If we go out of town for sporting events, you're going to be staying in a hotel, so that's going to be impacting the profit of that hotel, but then also the employees that go there, and then maybe you need to get either public transportation or an Uber. There's so much connected with taking that out of town trip, or in our case, taking a trip to Erie, how it impacts us locally here.
There are lots of multipliers, and then it gets really confusing when you go to multipliers of calculating economic impact. We're lucky we have a industry standard calculator that we can pump in some numbers, and it takes care of all those multipliers. But you're right, when you talk about bringing people to town to Erie and we'll use gymnastics as the example. We have a great gymnastics event coming up in January, the Stars and Stripes Invitational, which has been going on here for years, and defies the logic that everybody thinks nothing happens in Erie in the winter, because this has been going on in January for 15 to 20 years. So it's a great event. But when you think about a gymnast coming to town to compete, typically they're going to be here for 2 days, so that's 2 nights in a hotel. They need to have meals, they need entertainment in between competition. There's so many other things that happen. When we do the calculations, we can figure out pretty quickly that each family that comes to town is easily investing $500 to $700 per person. And when you say, well, 2,500 athletes are coming to town. Not all of them stay for 2 days. There's variation. Some stay for 3, some stay for more. But you start looking at those numbers and saying, well, if someone's spending $500 a day and there's 2,500 people in town, it's an impactful event. And for us, especially with that specific example in the Stars and Stripes Gymnastics, it happens in January, and that's a need time for our hospitality industry. So it's the perfect storm of events to be able to come together and do that. And then you mentioned, there's gas. Mm-hmm. If you're going to run around town, in all likelihood, maybe you want to get an Uber so you don't have to worry about driving. You run up to the casino. Obviously, you're not taking the kids to the casino, mm-hmm. but you're going to the zoo. Whatever that may be, there's so many options in Erie that makes this a desirable location for tournaments.
Absolutely. And then I just think of the simple things. I forgot to pack snacks, or I forgot to pack a sweatshirt. And so, you're looking for those local options that are close by, close to your hotels. And so, there you go, and that's just aside the essentials of being here, is the things you forget.
Yeah, and tourism touches almost every part of our economy in our county, and in every county for that matter. So you're exactly right. Everybody is getting a little bit from tourism, whether it's direct or indirect. And that's a hard thing to explain to people, to make them understand that, the tourism industry is extremely important to our community and to our county to continue to build. It was interesting, we were in a session a little while ago, and the gentleman running the session said, how many of you in the room's first job was in hospitality or tourism? And 80% of the room put their hands in the air. And I thought that was impactful too, because here's an industry that allows young people to get their foot into the door, into the working class, and learn what it's like to work and create those good responsibilities and habits. So, we like to think that tourism is not just someone coming to town to go to Presque Isle. It's certainly much more than that.
Absolutely. So how do you go about securing those events and the Stars and Stripes Gymnastics Invitational? How do you go about securing those events and getting them to come back year after year?
Well, there's a couple ways, and I'll start with Stars and Stripes because you mentioned that one. We have a great pool tournament coming up in March that's been a standard here in town too. Those are driven by local event organizers who are passionate about the sport that they like to do. We encourage them to take a leap of faith and try to do a tournament. The Erie Frost organization is a softball organization, which is one of our best examples because it was a new thing that came along, and it was a mother of a player for the softball team that came to our office one day and said, I don't want to travel every single weekend. Why can't we do a tournament here in Erie? 2 years later, they had a tournament that attracts over 60 teams from out of town, sells out in November for a June tournament, and that's because of the passion of the Erie Frost organization. And we're lucky enough to have a handful, or more than a handful, of organizers locally that we love to work with because they're boots on the ground in town that are passionate about their events and want to make something happen in the community and see the bigger picture with that community. Now, the other side of the equation is trying to attract out of county event organizers to come here, whether they be regional and national. And we do that a lot by going to conferences. We're just at the tail end of conference season. It's been a 6-week run where we've been jetting all over the country. It hadn't happened for a couple of years, and now the travel's back in. And we meet with a number of different event organizers. We probably met with 60 or 70 different event organizers over the past 2 months. And we try to find the event organizers and their events that fit our venues here in Erie. And hopefully we make some connections there and turn around and bring an event. And our goal always is to get repeat events. It's easy. Once you get them, you keep them. You don't have to try to find new ones. There are some events that we know will come to town and operate for a couple of years. We have the World Junior Pool Championships coming in July of 2022 at the Convention Center. They were also here in 2021. They do two-year rotations, then they leave and go somewhere else for a few years, and then they come back. So those are the two categories we want. We want events that are going to come back year after year, or we want events that they like Erie so much that they put us in the cycle of their awarding of events and moving forward.
And those events that like Erie so much, tell me, what's some of the feedback, positive feedback that you get where they say, this is why we choose Erie year after year? What do they say?
Venues. It starts with the venue. If we don't have somewhere for them to have their competition, and if they don't have good satisfaction at those venues, they're one and out, and they leave. We've got great venues, great venue operators. Again, it's seeing that bigger picture of, hey, we can have this event here. We may not make a ton of money as a venue, but it is good for the community. And those are first and foremost. And we have so much to offer here in Erie. Presque Isle is the number one thing that most of the regional and national event organizers have no idea about. They've never been to Erie. They don't know what that park is all about and the traffic that it gets annually and the benefit provides their participants for something to do outside of their tournament schedule. So, the venues, and I say Presque Isle, I mentioned the zoo earlier, Splash Lagoon, Waldemere. I'm going to miss one along the way, but we have so many great things that tournament participants can do outside of their competition time. It just makes it easy. And the great thing about going to conferences, and we know it because we've done it for the last 6 weeks and did our story over and over again, is to tell people how great this community is and what there is to do here and why this would make a great home for their competition.
And you go to these conferences, and so you're pitching Erie as, a place to host their event. What's the turnaround time, after you either submit like an application or a request for proposal? What's the turnaround time where you hear like, yes, we got this piece of business?
It depends. Sometimes we target some events and show up at conferences and say here and give them the proposal, and we've had a number of handshake agreements right on the spot to say, yeah, we're coming, let's just work out the details. And there's other events that we work for years on, just trying to find the right time. It's great when you find an event that fits in your community. We'd love to host a Super Bowl here. We're never going to host a Super Bowl here.
Right.
We don't have the facilities, so it's that's a pie in the sky thing that would never happen here. But when you find an event that does fit, then there's other things that come in. Where does it fit in their schedule? What's the availability of the venues? So there's a lot of moving parts that happen after that. I love the ones that they shake hands and say we're coming next year. They happen maybe once or twice a year, and usually it's a longer process that you have to nurture the relationship and try to find those opportunities. We don't only go to conferences, we also go to events so that we can see them operate where they're being held. Ben Hugler, who is our event services director, and myself drove a couple weeks ago to Salem, Virginia to go see the National Strongman competition. We think it's a great event and a great fit for Erie. They like the secondary markets because they've realized if they go to a Chicago or a Las Vegas, they get lost and nobody really knows that they're holding their event in their community. So, that's the other side of it, and it's a long process, but I'll tell you, when you work 2 or 3 years at trying to get someone to come to town and they do, and it's a successful event and you have them here, it's very rewarding.
Absolutely. And so you start that relationship, like you said, you travel to them, you go to these conferences or the events. Do they ever come here to Erie or maybe hit a circuit of towns where we may hold an event here, but we want to come stop and see it first?
Most certainly. Great point that we can tell people all we want and show them brochures and video clips, and there's nothing like bringing someone to town and having them see what's here firsthand. We've had lots of examples of people that I can think of one, a jet ski event organizer that grew up in Columbus, had family in Rochester, drove 90 from Columbus, or obviously from Cleveland to Rochester 100 times. Figured Erie was the interchange of Peach and I-90 and had no idea what was down. And when we brought him into town, he was blown away. And he had no idea that this was here. And that's what happens time and time again. And that's our best selling point. It's one of the most difficult things to do because these event organizers are very busy. We prefer not to bring them in December, January, February because it doesn't give the greatest impression of what we have here. But at the same time, we get them here. We had a site visit a couple weeks ago from a conference that potentially would become a sports conference. She was familiar with Erie but hadn't been here in a long time. And just the changes that have occurred in the last year or two, she was blown away and thought it was fantastic. And the accommodation options that we have in town are second to none. The convention center is outstanding. There's not a lot of places that have the amenities that we have in place right now, and the planned amenities that are coming down the line are great too.
And I agree. I think that Erie is rapidly changing in a positive direction, and I think if you blink, like if you're not here for a year or a couple of years, we change a lot. And I think that we do want to, we don't want to be stale or stagnant. We do want to keep up with neat or cool trends that other cities are doing. So I think that's really, again, to say a lot about the businesses that are here, are constantly investing and improving, and making the experience great for locals and tourists.
I always like to use examples because they're the best things that tell you, especially from our event organizers. We've been doing a powerboat poker run every summer for the past 5 or 6 years. He did it during the pandemic, following all the guidelines. And then he came back again this year, and all of a sudden they're down on the bayfront, and there's a new restaurant, and there's a new hotel that's open, and there's an outdoor bar area. It's just fantastic, and that's just focusing on one area. And we brought in another event organizer a couple weeks ago, and the first thing they said is, they drove up State Street was, wow, there is a lot happening here. And it's not just State Street. Everywhere they turned, there was something else happening. And it's such a great thing to be able to tell people not what the plans are, but what's happening right now. A climbing gym downtown and all that stuff, just thinking about from a sports related standpoint is makes this the sale of Erie, PA, which everybody is always, they don't know where Erie is. We actually bring a map to every conference to show people where we are located. They quickly get it with our proximity to Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and Buffalo, and Canada in good times without COVID. But it's very rewarding to be able to brag about our community as we were able to do.
Right, exactly. So we kind of touched base on a couple of things: gymnastics, softball, jet skiing. What types of events do you, again, sports and recreation, but what types of events do you work with?
Anything. We're a small staff. I mentioned Ben earlier. Emily Biddle is our communications and marketing director. We all are like-minded, and we like to do different things. We love to do the youth baseball, hockey tournaments. Lake Effect Hockey is a fantastic local tournament organizer that's going to do upwards of 10 hockey tournaments here this winter, which is at a great time. But we also did hydroflight. Hard to describe. It's someone standing on a board, and jet ski pumps, instead of the jet ski pushing the water out to propel the jet ski, it pumps the water up a tube and shoots these people up into the air. It's a unique thing, and we look at that. Strongman, as I mentioned earlier, is not a mainstream sport, but it's cool. It's kind of neat. So we like to run the gamut. We pride ourselves on going after some different events. Ben brought in spike ball this past summer. That's sort of a raging sport at the collegiate level. We met with Quidditch from the Harry Potter movies. When I first started, I didn't realize that people actually played Quidditch outside of the movies, but there are 2 different leagues that play Quidditch. So we like to look at all those things, but the bread and butter at the end of the day is going to be your basketball tournaments, your hockey tournaments, baseball tournaments, the pool tournament. Cheer is a fantastic event for us in town here. We work with Champion Cheer Central. Heather and Kim are probably the best organizers that we've ever worked with across the board, and they do fantastic events here that drive people into town. And again, they drive people into town during the need time in our schedule, which is between December and April. Yes,
and you mentioned Heather and Kim. I know Heather and Kim from probably 15 years ago, 20 years ago, being involved in the competitive cheer myself. But what I also love that came out of the pandemic is also these other sports that, like we just said, like Quidditch and, some of the other sports, they're really off the mainstream sports path, but it's so cool. And I think, if you're not looking to do those traditional sports, there's like a lot of other avenues now to either watch or to participate in.
Yeah, there is. It's all based on passions, and it's all based on event organizers. And Heather and Kim from Champion Cheer Central are a great example, but not our only example. And one of the things that we sort of appreciated more going through COVID was the passion and the skills of our event organizers. They really wanted to do their events, and because they love the sport and because it's their livelihood, and they did not run away from any of the restrictions. They embraced them. They figured out a way to do their events. I met with the cheer ladies, and we were talking about maybe doing an outdoor competition in December. Now I was like, I'm not sure about this, but they were trying to find a way because they knew there was a demand out there for their athletes and their customers. They wanted to compete, and it was just great to see a group of people come together to try to figure out how to get things done in conjunction with the venues, working together. I spent a lot of time with members of the health department as we tried to work everything through. But the event organizers are paramount to our operations and our success. And it's not, as you said, Jessica, it's not, you don't have to be someone who loves youth baseball. You might love kite flying, and there might be a kite flying competition out there that we would go out and look for and say, hey, can we bring a kite flying competition to Erie? The opportunities are endless. We say sports and competition because there are giant cribbage tournaments out there, and euchre tournaments and all those type of things. We uncover a lot of great sports and competitions, and we're always looking for opportunities. But most of the time, it begins and ends with a local person that's passionate about that competition or sport.
Of course. When there's a will, there's a way. So how has your organization grown over the last couple of years? Because you guys are a small staff, but you get a lot done.
Well, we've grown because Emily and Ben are fantastic workers, and they want to help the community, and that's basically what we're doing. Our services are offered for free. We are supported by a percentage of the hotel tax, so we don't even cost any local people any money, generally speaking, because it's the out-of-town people that are generating the funds to support our efforts. So our operations haven't changed all that much, although we just continue to try more and more sports, and we're running out of time. We learned a lot through COVID to try to expedite things a little bit quicker and finding ways to do things more efficiently than maybe we did in the past. But it comes down to the same thing. It comes down to relationships at the end of the day. And we have a staff of 3 plus an intern or 2 here and there. And that's what we preach, is that the only way we're going to have success is to have good relationships with people in the community, in the industry, trying to bring people into town. And we've been very successful in creating those relationships that bear fruit immediately, as we talked about earlier, or they bear fruit somewhere down the line.
Yeah, and we're excited about the future. So what are the upcoming events for the tail end of 2021 and beyond into 2022? What can we look forward to?
Well, we have a broomball tournament coming up at Erie Bank Sports Park. And Erie Bank Sports Park and the new Erie Sports Center is a great facility, and I'm very excited about the new ownership that's in place there and the possibilities that exist there. Cheer season kicks off in December with the first of 4 cheer competitions. Mentioned Stars and Stripes gymnastics. Hockey tournament season is in full swing. The state pool tournament will be back in March. And then we roll back into the summer. We're working on events for the summer right now. I mentioned the 2022 World Pool Championships. This is the second time we've hosted the 2-year run. The first time we had teams coming in from New Zealand. Now, when would anybody from New Zealand come to Erie? They came to play pool, and the first year they came, they brought a small contingent, loved it so much, they doubled it up the second year around. Unfortunately, COVID prevented them from coming for 2021, but we're hoping they'll be back here in 2022, plus the Canadians. And then, again, you go back to the regular schedule. Erie Frost will be back again. We've had great success with Lax Bash lacrosse tournaments up at the sports park. They've got 3 under their belt now. And they've been very successful, and we're looking forward to more outdoor events on the fields at Erie Bank Sports Park and Erie Sports Center in specific, and continuing to help the new ownership groups move their goals forward.
Absolutely. And what I want to talk about, we just have a couple minutes left, but I saw on Emily's email, at the bottom of her email, you had some recent awards. I have listed here the 2-time NASC Sports Commission of the Year and 2-time NASC Destination Marketing Campaign of the Year. What does that mean to you guys?
Well, it's recognition for a lot of hard work. It's a credit to Emily and her ability to put together our nomination package. And it's great to be recognized nationally in those departments. And Ron Sertz, our former executive director, certainly played a gigantic role in bringing those awards in our direction. I hope we're getting a little bit more well-known here in Erie County, but there a few years ago we were certainly more well-known nationally than we were here locally. We're trying to get the word out, but you know, those are awards that you know, I think we worked extremely hard for. I think we were fortunate in some cases to be in a position where we were able to work with a lot of great people and be able to bring a lot of great events into town. So, you know, we're not really looking for accolades. If they come our way, that's great. It's funny, Ron said when we applied for the first one, he said, "Hey, I just want our logo up on the screen at the national convention," and we won. And it was kind of funny that we didn't think we even had a shot. So it's great to be recognized. But again, there's a lot of work that has to be done, and whether we're winning awards or not, our goal is to have a positive impact in our community.
Yes, and you guys have. So again, our time has come to a close here, but I just want to thank you everything you've done, again, for the sports community, for the Erie community, and I want to thank you for being on our show today. Is there just one short takeaway message, or you want to leave our viewers with your contact information to get in touch with you if they have an idea?
That would be the takeaway. If somebody is interested in hosting an event or has a passion for an event that thinks there's an opportunity out there, all our contact information is at eriesports.com. It's the best place to get a hold of us, and we love meeting with people. We love to hear about their passions, and we like to help them, you know, find an outlet that they can help the community as well through what they love to do.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Jessica.
it.
Thank you.
Viewers, I want to thank you for tuning into today's show. We learned so much about the Erie Sports Commission and what they do, again, here for us, for the economy and for the local community. So if you have any neat ideas that you want to pitch, make sure you contact their organization, or if you're just interested in attending some of these cool sporting events that they bring to town, you're going to want to check out their website. Thank you for tuning into the Millcreek Government Channel, and until next time, have a great day.